The old cabin, a relic of my grandfather's optimism, never truly knew silence. At my age, you'll learn the language of the woods, to distinguish the arthritic groan of an ancient pine from the scuttling of a raccoon on the porched roof. You become fluent in the sigh of the wind and the chorus of crickets. But that sound was from a vocabulary I did not know. It was well past midnight, the kind of deep, velvet blackness that seems unique to mountains far from city lights. I was reading by the weak yellow pool of a kerosene lamp, the book resting on my knees, when the forest's usual nighttime murmur simply stopped. It wasn't a gradual quieting. It was as if a conductor had raised a baton and every creature in the chorus held its breath. The hair on my arms prickled. A lifetime of woodcraft, a legacy passed down from my own father, whispered a single, clear warning. Something is here, and then it came. Not a howl, not a scream, but a cry. It was high-pitched, choked with a desperation that cut through the cold air and seized something primal in my chest. It was the sound of a child, lost and terrified, but underscored by a resonance that no human larynx could produce, a guttural, vibrating tremor that seemed to shake the very wind. It was a baby, and it was in profound distress, perhaps injured, just beyond the tree line. My first instinct, the one bred into any decent soul, was to rush out with a lantern and help. But my second instinct, the one honed by 70-odd years of knowing that the wilderness is not a park but a kingdom with its own rules and rulers, held me fast. This was no lost hiker's kid. This was something else. The legends of these mountains. The stories the Klamath tribes told and that trappers and loggers whispered about over spiked coffee stories of Sasquatch fluted back to me. I had always dismissed them as charming folklore, but hearing that sound, the sound that vibrated in my bones, made a believer out of me in an instant. The crying continued, a heart-wrenching wail of pure fear. Gripping my heavy iron flashlight like a club, I moved to the door, my own heart hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I cracked it open, the freezing air biting my face. I shone the beam out into the darkness, the light swallowed by the oppressive gloom just a few feet out. The cries seemed to be coming from a thicket of blackberry brambles near the old creek bed. I took 2 steps onto the porch, the wood creaking under my weight, and then I saw her, or rather, I saw her shadow first, a monumental shape detaching itself from the deeper darkness of a Douglas fir. She was enormous, easily 7 feet tall, and powerfully built, silhouetted against the starlit sky. The air left my lungs. This was the mother. A low rumble emanated from her, a sound that felt less like a noise and more like a physical pressure in the air, a vibration that warned of immense power and protective fury. I froze, utterly terrified, knowing I was an intruder, a threat too close to her child. She took a single step toward the thicket, her focus entirely on the source of the cries, but she paused, her massive head turning slightly in my direction. She knew I was there. In that suspended moment, our eyes met across the distance. I saw not the monster of campfire tailies, but a mother's raw, panicked anguish. The intelligence in that glance was staggering. It was a look of calculation, of fear, of a desperate need to get to her baby warring with the unknown variable of me. Then, a sharp, pained yelp from the brambles decided it for her. She turned and crashed into the thicket, the vines and thorns snapping like twigs under her strength. I heard a soft, whimpering coo from her, a sound so at odds with her size it was disorienting. The baby's cries subsided into hiccuping sobs. I should have gone inside. I should have locked the door and pretended the world was still the same. Predictable place. I thought it was hours before, but I was transfixed. This was a glimpse behind the curtain of reality itself. I remained on the porch, a statue in my wool coat, watching. A few minutes later, she emerged from the thicket. Cradled in one massive, long arm was the infant. It was smaller than I imagined, covered in reddish-brown hair, its face buried against her chest. In her other hand, she dragging a tangled mass of barbed wire and old fencing the culprit. The baby must have gotten snared in a forgotten trap. She laid the little one down gently on the soft pine needles at the edge of the clearing and, with a terrifying display of strength, began to patiently untangle the wire from its small leg. Her fingers, thick and leathery, worked with a surprising, meticulous delicacy. Once the baby was free, she examined the wound, making a soft clucking sound. Then she did something that I will carry with me to my grave. She looked directly at me. Not a glare, not a challenge. It was a look of acknowledgement. A silent communication passed between us, a thread of understanding connecting to entirely different beings. It was the shared, universal language of parenthood, of a love that would face down any danger, slowly, never breaking eye contact. I set the heavy flashlight down on the porch rail, a gesture of known aggression. I took a single step back toward the door. She watched me for a moment longer, then gently gathered her baby back into her arms. The infant had gone quiet, comforted by its mother's presence. She turned and melted back into the forest, moving with a silence that defied her immense size. One moment she was there, a figure from a dream at the edge of my light, and the next, she was gone. The forest exhaled. The crickets tentatively resumed their song. The wind sighed through the pines once more. I stood there for a long time, until the cold seeped through to my bones. I never saw her again. I never heard that cry again. Sometimes, in the deep of the night, I wonder if it was all a vivid dream, conjured by an old man's mind. But I have the proof, coiled and rusting in my shed, this section of barbed wire she left behind. I don't tell this story often. Who would believe a crazy old man? But I don't tell it for belief. I hold it close. A precious secret. We think we know the boundaries of this world, that we have it all mapped and explained. But that night, a mother's love for her child tore down those walls and showed me that the world is still vast, still mysterious, and still capable of incredible, Hentley wonder. It wasn't a monster I met in the woods. It was a reminder that wonder and kindness can exist in the most unexpected of forms.